The champagne flute felt delicate in Anita's hand as she stood in the glittering ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, wrapped in midnight blue silk that hugged curves she'd learned to love like old friends. The man beside her, sharp-suited, dangerous, devastatingly handsome, leaned close enough that his breath ghosted across her temple. "You're staring at him again," Kang Min-jun murmured in that low, accented voice that still sent shivers down her spine, even after 8 months together. Anita didn't deny it. Across the room, Devon stood frozen, champagne halfway to his lips, watching her with an expression she recognized too well now, regret. The same man who told her she was too much, too heavy, too loud, too everything, now couldn't look away from the woman she'd become. Min-jun's hand settled possessively on the small of her back, his thumb tracing a slow circle through the fabric. "Should I have him removed?" She almost laughed. Because 18 months ago, she would have given anything for Devon to look at her the way Min-jun did now, like she was the only person in the room worth seeing. But that was before everything changed. Before she learned what she was really worth. Before we dive into this transformation journey, hit that like button if you love a good revenge glow-up story. And subscribe because trust me, you'll want to see how she went from heartbroken to absolutely untouchable. Now, let's get into it. 18 months earlier, Newark, New Jersey. Anita Okafor had always believed that love meant showing up. It meant packing extra jollof rice and fried plantains because Devon always forgot to eat during his double shifts at Marco's auto body shop. It meant staying up until 2 a.m. on work nights, helping him research business loans and write proposals for the custom car garage he dreamed of opening. It meant being his loudest cheerleader, his safe place, his home. At 26, she worked as a senior claims processor for Sterling and Associates Insurance, steady, boring, safe. Her cubicle had a small plant she kept forgetting to water and a framed photo of her and Zola at their parents' anniversary party last year. Her life had a comfortable rhythm, work from 9 to 5, gym on Tuesdays and Thursdays, when she remembered and wasn't too tired, Saturday brunch with Zola at their favorite Nigerian restaurant in Irvington, and evenings with Devon. She'd met him 3 years ago at the annual Branch Brook Park Cherry Blossom Cookout. Her mother had dragged her along, insisting she needed to get out and meet people, instead of spending another weekend binge-watching cooking shows. Devon had been there with his cousin Marcus, manning a grill, charming everyone with his easy smile and big dreams. "I'm not gonna work for someone else forever," he told her that first day, his eyes bright with ambition. "I've got a plan. 5 years, I'll have my own shop. Luxury custom cars for people who want something nobody else has. Not just another garage, an experience." She'd been drawn to his drive, his passion, the way he talked about the future like it was a place he could physically reach if he just stretched far enough. 3 months later, they'd made it official. 2 years after that, she'd moved some of her things into his apartment in East Orange, though she'd kept her own place in Newark. Just in case, she'd told Zola, who'd rolled her eyes. "Girl, either you're in or you're out. This just-in-case energy is not it." But Anita had liked having her own space. A backup plan. Except she'd barely used her apartment in the past year, spending most nights at Devon's, cooking dinner, watching him sketch designs for cars, listening to his dreams like they were prayers. "You're my good luck charm, Mara," he told her once, after landing a particularly difficult custom job. He'd kissed her forehead, pulled her close. "Everything good in my life started when I met you." She'd held on to those words like a talisman. Even when things started to shift. Even when he started making comments. It had been subtle at first. Small things. "You gonna finish all those fries?" "I'm just saying, we've been talking about eating healthier. Maybe we should start meal prepping. You know, portion control and stuff. I saw this YouTube video. That dress is nice, but maybe something more. I don't know, flowy. The bodycon thing is kinda." Anita had tried to laugh it off. Tried to tell herself he was just health conscious, just trying to better himself and include her in that journey. She'd even joined the gym, started going to Zumba classes with Zola, downloaded a calorie-counting app. But nothing she did seemed to be enough. The comments kept coming, breadcrumbs leading to a cliff she couldn't see yet. When Devon finally got a meeting with Marcus Chen, not his cousin Marcus, but the Marcus Chen, a successful investor known for funding automotive startups and turning them into multi-million-dollar enterprises, Anita had been more excited than Devon. She'd literally jumped up and down in his tiny kitchen when he'd gotten the email confirming the meeting. "Oh my God, baby. This is it. This is everything you've been working for." She'd thrown her arms around him, nearly knocking over his protein shake. "I told you it would happen. I told you someone would see your vision." Devon had smiled, but it hadn't reached his eyes. There'd been something tight around his mouth, something anxious in the way he'd pulled away from her embrace just a little too quickly. "Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Good. It's incredible. Marcus Chen. Do you know how many successful shops he's backed? This could change everything." "I know, Mara. I know." He'd run a hand over his fresh fade, a nervous habit. It's a lot of pressure, you know. I need to make the right impression." "You will. You're brilliant. Your designs are incredible. He's going to love you." Devon had nodded, but he'd looked distracted, distant. The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday, dinner at 11 Madison Park, one of the most exclusive restaurants in Manhattan. Anita had immediately started planning. She'd requested the afternoon off work so she could get her hair done. She'd gone shopping, finally splurging on the emerald green dress she'd been eyeing for months. It was gorgeous, highlighting her warm brown skin, nipping in at the waist, showing off curves she was trying to learn to love. She'd felt beautiful when she tried it on. She'd felt ready to stand beside Devon as he walked into his future. On Monday night, she'd been at his apartment, the dress hanging on the back of his bedroom door, when he dropped the bomb. "So, about tomorrow. I know, I'm nervous too. But it's going to be amazing. We should probably leave by 5 to deal with traffic." "Mara." Devon had cut her off, not meeting her eyes. I think I should go alone." The words had landed like a physical blow. She'd actually taken a step back, her hand reaching for the counter to steady herself. "Alone? It's a business meeting, you know. I need to be focused. Professional. I can't be worrying about," he'd stopped himself, but the damage was done. "Worrying about what, Devon? Worrying about me? That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" He'd sighed, frustrated, like she was being difficult. Like she was the problem. "It's just better if I go alone, okay? This is important, and I need to make the right impression. Marcus is bringing his business partner. It's going to be all business talk. You'd be bored anyway." Every instinct in her body had screamed that this was wrong. That she should push back, demand to be included, remind him of all the nights she'd helped him prepare for this exact moment. But she'd swallowed the hurt, forced a smile. "Okay. If that's what you think is best." The relief on his face had been worse than the rejection. "Thanks, babe. I knew you'd understand. You always do." She'd gone home that night, to her own apartment, the one she barely used anymore. She'd hung the emerald dress in the back of her closet and told herself it was fine. This was his dream. His moment. She didn't need to be there for every step. But when Tuesday night had rolled around and she'd found herself stress-eating ice cream and scrolling through social media, she'd seen them. The photos. Marcus Chen had posted them on Instagram, a power move, showing off his newest investment prospect. The restaurant was beautiful, all elegant ambience and artistic plating. Marcus was there with his business partner, a sharp-looking Korean man in his 50s. Devon was there, looking nervous but excited in the suit Anita had helped him pick out last month. And there was a woman. She was stunning, the kind of stunning that made Anita's chest tight. Slim, delicate, with pin-straight black hair and a dress that probably cost more than Anita's monthly rent. She was laughing in the photo, her hand resting casually on Devon's arm, leaning in like they were sharing a private joke. The caption read, "Excited to back the next big thing in luxury automotive. At Devon Customs is going places. Future of luxury next gen." Anita had stared at that photo for 20 minutes straight. Then she'd called Zola. "Who is she?" Anita had asked without preamble when her sister picked up. "Girl, hello to you too." "Who is who?" "The woman in the photo with Devon. On Marcus Chen's Instagram." There'd been a pause. Then keyboard clicking. Then a long, heavy sigh. "Anita. Who is she, Zoe?" "Her name is Sienna Chen. Marcus's daughter. She's an influencer or some shit. Does brand consulting for luxury companies." Of course she was. When Devon had come to her apartment later that night, riding high on the success of the meeting, she'd been waiting. "It went amazing, Mara. Marcus is in. He's going to back the whole thing, the space, the equipment, everything. I'm really doing this." "That's great, Devon." Her voice had been flat. He'd finally looked at her, really looked at her. "What's wrong? Who's Sienna?" His face had done something complicated. Guilt, annoyance, defensiveness all flashing across his features in rapid succession. "Marcus's daughter. She was just there. She was touching you." "Jesus Christ, Anita." He'd thrown his hands up. It was a business dinner. She was being friendly. "Why are you making this a thing? You lied to me." "I didn't lie. You said it would be you, Marcus, and his business partner. You specifically said no partners, that I'd be bored with all the business talk." "But she was there. She's part of the business. She does brand consulting. Marcus wants her involved in the marketing side. So why didn't you just tell me that? Why did you make me feel like I was being unreasonable for wanting to be there?" Devon had rubbed his face, and when he'd looked at her again, there'd been something cold in his eyes. Something that made her feel small. "Because I knew you'd make it weird, Mara. Just like you're doing right now. I knew you'd get insecure and jealous and make everything about you instead of being happy for me." The words had cut like glass. "I am happy for you. I've done nothing but support you for 3 years. Yeah, and I appreciate that. But this is my dream, my business, my future. And I need to make decisions that are best for that future, not worry about your feelings every 5 seconds." She'd wanted to scream. Wanted to cry. Wanted to throw something. Instead, she just nodded. "You're right. This is your dream. You should do what's best for it." He'd left shortly after, citing an early morning meeting with his contractor. Anita had cried herself to sleep that night, hugging a pillow that still smelled like him, and told herself it would get better. It didn't. Over the next 3 months, Anita watched her relationship dissolve in slow motion. Devon secured his funding, $750,000 from Marcus Chen to launch Devon Customs, a luxury automotive customization shop positioned to cater to New York's elite. The shop would be in a converted warehouse in Jersey City, all exposed brick and industrial chic, with state-of-the-art equipment and a design studio for custom consultations. It was everything he'd ever wanted. And Anita had helped make it happen. She'd contributed $8,000 from her savings, money she'd been putting aside for a down payment on a house, when Devon had been short on the deposit for the space. "Marcus's funding doesn't kick in until we sign the final papers," he'd explained. "I just need to float this for a month. I'll pay you back triple when we're profitable." She hadn't cared about being paid back. She'd cared about being part of his dream. She'd helped him organize his paperwork when he'd been drowning in LLC formations and business licenses. She'd proofread his business plan at 1 a.m. on work nights, catching typos and suggesting better phrasing. She'd networked with her insurance contacts to get him better rates on his business policy. She'd shown up. But Devon's space for her kept shrinking. Can't do dinner tonight, babe. Meeting with the contractor. Gonna have to take a rain check on Sunday. Sienna wants to do a walkthrough of the space for the branding photo shoot. I'm exhausted, can we not do this tonight? Their date nights became weekly, then bi-weekly, then whenever he had time. Their phone calls became text messages, became one-word responses. And Sienna, beautiful, thin, perfect Sienna, appeared more and more frequently on Devon's social media. Always captioned as, the team, or grinding, or building something special. You're overthinking it, Zola had said over their Saturday brunch, but even her usually blunt younger sister had looked concerned. But also, girl, when's the last time he took you out to celebrate anything? Like, anything at all. Anita had pushed her watch around her plate. He's busy. He's building a business. Beyoncé was busy building an empire and still had time for Jay-Z. That's not the same. It's exactly the same. Look, I get it. Starting a business is hard. But he's making time for Sienna. He's making time for photo shoots and Instagram content and networking events. He's just not making time for you. What are you saying I should do? Zola had reached across the table, squeezing her sister's hand. I'm saying you should stop setting yourself on fire to keep him warm. I'm saying you deserve someone who doesn't make you feel like you're too much or not enough. I'm saying. She'd paused, choosing her words carefully. I'm saying you should prepare yourself for this to end. Because from where I'm sitting, he's already halfway out the door. Anita had wanted to argue. Wanted to defend Devon, defend their relationship, defend 3 years of history. But deep down, she'd known Zola was right. It happened on a Tuesday in late August, 3.5 months after Devon had gotten his funding. The shop was done, a beautiful, Instagram-perfect space that represented everything Devon had worked for. He'd texted her that morning, come by the shop around 6. Want to show you something. Her heart had lifted for the first time in weeks. Maybe this was it. Maybe now that the business was launched, he'd have time for her again. Maybe he'd apologize for being so distant, admit he'd been stressed, promise to do better. Maybe he'd even propose. They'd talked about marriage before, in abstract terms. Once the business is up and running, he'd always said. Once I'm stable. She'd left work early, gone home to change into a cute sundress, yellow, cheerful, hopeful. She'd even stopped by his favorite bakery and picked up the red velvet cupcakes he loved. The shop was in a trendy part of Jersey City, surrounded by art galleries and craft breweries. From the outside, it looked incredible, a huge glass storefront with Devon Customs in sleek chrome lettering. She'd felt a swell of pride as she'd approached. He'd really done it. The door was unlocked. She'd walked in, taking in the gleaming concrete floors, the luxury cars in various stages of customization, the design studio in the back with mood boards and fabric samples. That's when she'd heard the voices. Devon's office was in the back, separated from the main floor by a glass wall. The door was open. Just saying, optics matter. Sienna's voice, crisp and authoritative. When we launch, everything has to be perfect. The cars, the branding, the image we project. I know. Devon's voice. Do you? Because you can't half-ass this, Dev. My father is putting up $750,000. He expects a return on that investment, which means you need to be the total package. What are you saying, Sienna? I'm saying that when we do the launch party next month, when we start the PR push, when we position you as the next big thing in luxury automotive, you need to look the part. Act the part. Be seen with the right people. There was a pause. Anita had frozen in the hallway, cupcake box clutched in her hands. Including who I'm seen with? Devon's voice had been quiet. Especially who you're seen with. Sienna had sighed, not unkindly. Look, I'm sure Anita is a nice person. But she doesn't fit the aesthetic we're building here. This is luxury. Exclusivity. Aspiration. And she's what? There'd been a long, terrible pause. She's not the look, Devon. She's overweight, she dresses like she works in a cubicle, which, fine, she does, but this is about image. When people see you, they need to see success. Power. Excellence. They need to want what you have. And I'm sorry, but your girlfriend isn't going to make anyone envious. Anita had waited, holding her breath, hoping, praying, for Devon to defend her. To tell Sienna she was out of line. To say that Anita was beautiful, that she was brilliant, that she was worth 100 Siennas. Instead, he'd said, I know. 2 words. 2 words that had shattered 3 years. So what are you going to do about it? Sienna had pressed. Another pause. I'll handle it. That's when Anita had walked in, vision blurry with tears she refused to let fall. Both of them had looked up, startled. Devon's face had cycled through shock, guilt, and something that looked almost like relief, like he'd been waiting for an excuse, a catalyst, a way out that wasn't his fault. Don't. Her voice had been steady. Proud of herself for that. Don't say my name like you actually care. You don't understand. That's not, we were just talking about marketing. No, you were talking about me. About how I don't fit the aesthetic. About how I'm an embarrassment to your brand. She'd set the cupcake box on his desk, gently, carefully. So let me ask you one question, and I need you to be honest for once in your life. Anita. Do you love me? She'd looked him directly in the eyes. Right now, the way I am, exactly as I am, do you love me, Devon? He'd opened his mouth. Closed it. His eyes had darted to Sienna, then back to Anita. And said nothing. The silence had been answer enough. I gave you everything, Anita had said, proud that her voice only shook a little. 3 years of my life. $8,000 of my savings that you still haven't paid back. Countless hours helping you build this dream. I packed your lunches, edited your business plan, cheered you on when you wanted to give up. I loved you with everything I had. I know. I appreciate. I don't want your appreciation. The words had burst out, loud and raw. I wanted your love. I wanted you to look at me the way you look at these cars, like I was valuable, like I was worth investing in, like I was something precious. Devon had stood, reaching for her. You are. She'd stepped back. Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me. Can we talk about this in private? His eyes had flicked to Sienna again. Why? So she doesn't have to witness you confirming that I'm not thin enough, pretty enough, good enough for your brand? Anita had laughed, harsh and bitter. No. I'm done protecting your ego. I'm done shrinking myself so you can feel big. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest. Maybe for the first time in months, I'm being completely honest. She'd taken a breath, steadied herself. We're done, Devon. I'm done. Mara, come on. Don't, let's not make any rash decisions. Rash? There's nothing rash about this. You stopped loving me, if you ever really did, the moment I stopped being convenient. The moment I became a liability to your image instead of an asset. She'd turned to Sienna then, who'd at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. I hope he's everything you want. I hope he builds an empire. I hope every single one of his dreams comes true. She'd meant it. But one day, you're going to stop being useful to him too. And when that happens, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember that he's the kind of man who measures worth in aesthetics and Instagram likes. And you'll realize what I'm realizing right now. What's that? Sienna had asked quietly. That being alone is better than being with someone who makes you feel invisible. Anita had walked out of that office, out of that shop, out of Devon's life with her head high and her heart in pieces. She'd made it to her car before the sobs came. She'd sat in the parking lot of Devon Customs and cried until she couldn't breathe, until her makeup was ruined, until the sun started to set. And then she'd driven home. She'd blocked Devon's number. She'd deleted all their photos from her phone. She'd packed up the few things she had at his apartment, leaving them in a box outside his door in the middle of the night so she wouldn't have to see him. And then she'd called in sick to work for 3 days and let herself fall apart. The first 2 weeks after the breakup, Anita existed in a fog. She'd functioned on autopilot: wake up, shower, work, come home, sleep, repeat. She'd ignored the 17 calls from Devon in the first 3 days, before she'd blocked him. She'd ignored the well-meaning but ultimately useless advice from coworkers who'd noticed her red eyes and forced smiles. She'd avoided Zola's calls too, not ready to hear "I told you so," even though her sister would never actually say it. On day 16, Zola had used her spare key to let herself into Anita's apartment. "Okay, this ends now," her sister had announced, pushing back the curtains and letting brutal sunlight flood the dark bedroom. Anita had groaned, pulling a pillow over her face. "Go away." "No. You've got 15 minutes to shower. We're going out." "Zoe, I'm not. I don't care." Zola had yanked the pillow away, forcing Anita to look at her. "You're not doing this. You're not letting that man take anything else from you. He's already taken 3 years, $8,000, and your peace of mind. He doesn't get to take your future too. He said I didn't fit his aesthetic." Anita's voice had cracked. "Like I'm a piece of furniture. Like I'm something to be swapped out for a better model." Zola had sat on the edge of the bed, her anger softening into something gentler. "I know, sis. I know it hurts. I gave him everything. I know. I really loved him. I know." Zola had pulled her into a hug. "But here's what I also know: you loved who you thought he could become. You loved the dream, the potential, the version of him that existed in your head. The real Devon. The one who judges women by their dress size and throws away 3 years like it's nothing. That Devon doesn't deserve your tears." "Then why can't I stop crying?" "Because you're grieving. Not just him, but the future you thought you'd have. The life you planned. That's real, and it's valid, and you're allowed to feel it." Zola had pulled back, looking her sister in the eye. "But you're not going to drown in it. I won't let you. What if he's right? What if I am too much? Then you're too much for the wrong person. And that's his loss, not your flaw." Anita had wanted to believe her. Wanted to feel that certainty. But all she'd felt was hollow. "I don't know how to come back from this, Zoe. You don't have to know. You just have to start. Shower, get dressed, and we'll take it one tiny step at a time. Can you do that?" Anita had nodded. It had been the first step on a very long road. The next Monday, Anita had made an appointment with Dr. Michelle Park, a therapist whose office was in a calm, plant-filled space in Montclair. "Why are you here?" Dr. Park had asked in their first session, direct and unblinking. "Because my boyfriend dumped me for being fat." "Did he use those words?" "No. He said I didn't fit the aesthetic of his brand." "And you internalized that as being about your weight?" Anita had paused. "Isn't it? I don't know. Is it? Or is it about a man who was too shallow and insecure to appreciate what he had?" Dr. Park had leaned forward. "Let me ask you again, why are you here? Not why did he leave? Not what's wrong with you. Why did you decide to sit in this chair today?" The question had caught Anita off guard. I don't want to feel like this anymore." "Like what?" "Like I'm not enough. Like I have to change everything about myself to be worthy of love. Like. She'd swallowed hard. Like I'm too much and not enough at the same time. Dr. Park had nodded, understanding in her eyes. Okay. That's a start. Now let me be very clear about something, and I need you to hear me. You don't need to change to be worthy. You already are worthy. That's not something that can be earned or lost based on someone else's opinion. It just is. Then why doesn't it feel that way? Because you've spent 3 years with someone who treated your worth like it was conditional. Like it was something you had to earn every day by being smaller, quieter, more convenient. That kind of emotional manipulation doesn't disappear overnight. Anita had started crying then, big, ugly sobs that she'd been holding back for weeks. I'm so angry, she'd gasped between tears. At him, at myself, at everything. Good. Anger is healthy. Anger means you know you deserved better. But I miss him. How messed up is that? He treated me like garbage and I still miss him. You don't miss him. You miss the idea of him. You miss the relationship you thought you had. You miss the future you'd planned. That's completely normal. So what do I do? You grieve. You feel the feelings. You stop trying to logic your way out of heartbreak and let yourself be sad and angry and confused. And slowly, when you're ready, you start building a life that doesn't have room for people who make you feel less than. Dr. Park had become Anita's anchor over the next few months. 6 weeks after the breakup, Zola had dragged Anita to a kickboxing gym in Newark. I'm not trying to lose weight for him, Anita had protested. This isn't about him. This is about you hitting things legally. The instructor had been a woman named Keisha, 40-something, muscular, with box braids and an attitude that didn't tolerate excuses. You ever done this before? Keisha had asked. No. Good. Forget everything you think you know about your body. This isn't about size or shape. This is about power. You understand? Anita hadn't, not then. But after that first class, after an hour of punching and kicking and sweating and feeling her body as a source of strength instead of shame, she'd started to. She'd gone back the next week. And the next. She'd started working with Keisha one-on-one, learning proper form, building strength, discovering muscles she'd forgotten she had. You're strong, Keisha had said after a particularly brutal session. You've always been strong. You just forgot. Anita had also started saying yes to herself in small ways. She'd updated her wardrobe, not to a smaller size, but to clothes that fit her current body beautifully. Vibrant colors, bold prints, silhouettes that made her feel confident instead of hidden. She'd gotten her hair done at a high-end salon instead of her usual bargain spot, investing in goddess locks that made her feel regal. She'd started eating food she actually enjoyed instead of restricting herself to whatever diet Devon had been pushing that month. And slowly, so slowly she barely noticed, she'd started to feel like herself again. A different self. A stronger self. For months after the breakup, Anita had been scrolling through LinkedIn during lunch when she'd seen it, senior risk analyst position at Titanium Risk Group, one of the most prestigious insurance firms in Manhattan. The salary was $95,000, a $35,000 increase from her current position. The old Anita would have talked herself out of applying. Would have convinced herself she wasn't qualified enough, wasn't ready, wasn't deserving. The new Anita had updated her resume and applied that night. 2 weeks later, she'd gotten a call for an interview. The panel had been intimidating. 3 senior executives grilling her about risk assessment models and crisis management protocols. But Anita had been ready. She'd over-prepared, researched the company inside and out, and walked in with a confidence she'd built from scratch. Why should we hire you, the CEO, a sharp-eyed woman named Catherine Winters, had asked. Because I don't just assess risk, I anticipate it. I see patterns other people miss. And when crisis hits, I don't panic. I execute. Anita had met her gaze steadily. You need someone who can save your clients millions in claims by seeing problems before they become disasters. That's what I do. She'd gotten the job offer 2 days later. When she'd called Zola with the news, her sister had screamed so loud Anita had to hold the phone away from her ear. "That's my girl. That's my girl. We're celebrating. Fancy dinner, my treat. Zoe, you're a grad student. I'll treat. Even better. See? You're already thinking like a six-figure woman. It's not 6 figures. Yet. It's not 6 figures yet." Anita had started her new job feeling like she was walking into a life that actually fit her. Okay, can we just appreciate Anita's glow-up energy right now? She's healing, she's thriving, she's becoming that girl. But this is just the beginning, fam. If you're wondering how the Korean Mafia CEO comes into play, keep watching, because that meeting is about to change everything. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss these stories. Drop a blue heart in the comments if you're Team Anita. Now let's get back to the story. 10 months after the breakup, Manhattan. The rain had started during Anita's last meeting of the day, a sudden autumn downpour that turned Manhattan streets into rivers and sent pedestrians scrambling for cover. She'd left Titanium Risk Group's headquarters at 6:30 p.m., umbrella in hand, already thinking about the hot bath and book waiting for her at home. Her apartment, a cute one-bedroom in Harlem she'd moved into 3 months ago, felt like a sanctuary these days. She'd been waiting at the crosswalk on Park Avenue when she'd heard it, the screech of tires, the sick crunch of metal on metal, the tinkling of breaking glass. The black Mercedes sedan had swerved to avoid a delivery truck that had run a red light. The Mercedes had overcorrected, jumped the curb, and slammed into a parked BMW with enough force to deploy the airbags. Most people had pulled out their phones to record. Anita's crisis management training had kicked in. She'd run toward the accident, heels splashing through puddles, umbrella forgotten. The Mercedes driver's side door was dented but not jammed. Through the tinted window, she could see a man slumped against the deployed airbag, conscious but dazed. She'd yanked the door open. "Sir. Sir, can you hear me?" The man had turned his head slowly. Blood trickled from a cut on his temple where he'd hit the window frame. His eyes were dark, sharp even through obvious pain, and there was something arresting about his face, high cheekbones, strong jaw, an elegance that seemed inherent. He'd also been the most beautiful man Anita had ever seen in real life. "I can hear you," he'd said, his English accented, each word carefully pronounced. "Don't move. You could have a neck or spinal injury." She was already dialing 911, hitting speaker so she could keep her hands free. "What's your name?" "Min-jun, Kong Min-jun." "Okay, Min-jun. I'm Anita. I'm going to stay with you until the ambulance gets here." She'd assessed him quickly, no obvious major injuries besides the head laceration, airbag had deployed properly, he was conscious and coherent. "Can you tell me what day it is?" "Thursday. October 12th. You have excellent crisis management skills." Despite everything, there'd been a hint of amusement in his voice. "You're bleeding from a head wound and you're critiquing my first aid." She'd pressed her scarf against the cut to staunch the bleeding. "I'm simply observing that you're very competent. And commanding. Most people would have just filmed this for Instagram." "Yeah, well, I'm not most people. Now stop talking and focus on staying conscious." The 911 operator had confirmed an ambulance was 3 minutes away. That's when the men had appeared. 2 of them, both in dark suits that screamed security or possibly something more dangerous. They'd materialized from seemingly nowhere, faces grim, speaking rapid Korean to Min-jun. Min-jun had responded in the same language, his tone sharp and authoritative despite his injury. One of the men had turned to Anita. "We'll take it from here. You can go." "No." The man had looked surprised. "Excuse me. He has a head injury. He needs medical attention." I'm staying until the paramedics arrive. Miss, this isn't. She stays. Min Jun's voice, quiet but absolute. The men had backed off immediately. The ambulance had arrived 4 minutes later. Anita had given the paramedics a clear rundown of the accident and Min Jun's condition, had watched them stabilize his neck and load him onto a gurney. You should go to the hospital, she told him as they'd loaded him into the ambulance. Only if you come with me. What? I don't. Please. He'd caught her hand, his grip surprisingly strong. I don't like hospitals. And you're. He'd seemed to search for words. You're calming. Please. One of the suited men had stepped forward. Mr. Kong, that's not necessary. Taeyang. Min Jun had silenced him with a look. I would like Anita to accompany me. Make it happen. Anita should have said no. Should have given her information to the police and gone home to her hot bath and book. Instead, she'd climbed into the ambulance. The ER at Mount Sinai had been chaos, typical for a rainy Thursday evening in Manhattan. But the moment Min Jun's entourage had arrived, things had moved differently. Faster. A private room had materialized. A senior attending had appeared to personally oversee his care. Anita had waited in the hallway, wet and cold in her work clothes, wondering what exactly she'd gotten herself into. The suited man from earlier, Taeyang, apparently, had approached her with a bottle of water and what might have been grudging respect. Thank you. For helping him. Anyone would have. No. Most wouldn't. He'd handed her the water. Mr. Kong would like to see you before you go. If you're willing. She'd been willing. Min Jun had been sitting up in the hospital bed when she'd entered, looking annoyed and uncomfortable in a hospital gown. The cut on his temple had been cleaned and butterfly bandaged. He'd looked simultaneously vulnerable and dangerous, and Anita had felt something flutter in her chest that she'd firmly ignored. They say I have a mild concussion, he'd announced. No driving for 24 hours, no alcohol, monitor for symptoms. As if I would drink after hitting my head. You should take it seriously. Concussions can be dangerous. So my very expensive doctor informed me. 3 times. He gestured to the chair beside the bed. Please, sit. You've been standing for over an hour because of me. She'd sat, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. You didn't have to stay, Min Jun had said quietly. But I'm grateful you did. You said you don't like hospitals. I don't. Bad memories. He'd looked at her with those dark, assessing eyes. What do you do, Anita? When you're not rescuing strangers from car accidents? I'm a senior risk analyst at Titanium Risk Group. Ah. That explains the crisis management skills. And you? When you're not crashing into BMWs? He'd smiled, a real smile that transformed his face. I'm the CEO of Kong International Holdings. We do import-export, commercial real estate, private security consulting. That's impressively vague. My business is complicated. Ominous and complicated. Got it. He'd laughed, then winced. Don't make me laugh. It hurts my head. Then don't be charming. I'm not trying. It's just how I am. Despite herself, Anita had smiled. A nurse had come in then to discharge him with a lengthy list of concussion care instructions. Taeyang had appeared with a change of clothes and a town car waiting outside. My associate will drive you home, Min Jun had said as they'd walked out of the hospital together. It's late and raining. I insist. That's really not. Please. You saved my life, or at the very least my dignity. Allow me this small kindness. She'd agreed, mostly because she was exhausted and the thought of dealing with the subway at 9 p.m. was unappealing. As they'd stood on the curb waiting for separate cars, his to his home, hers to Harlem, Min-jun had pulled a business card from his wallet. Elegant black cardstock with minimalist silver lettering. Kong Min-jun, CEO, Kong International Holdings. Below it, a phone number and email address. "I would like to see you again," he'd said directly. "To thank you properly. Dinner, perhaps." Anita had looked at the card, at this beautiful, mysterious man who commanded respect from everyone around him and had somehow been charmed by her bossiness. "You don't need to thank me. Perhaps I want to." "Why?" "Because in my experience, people who run toward danger instead of away from it are rare. And worth knowing." She'd slipped the card into her purse. "Dinner. Somewhere low-key. You shouldn't be going anywhere fancy with a concussion." His smile had been radiant. "As you wish." Min-jun had texted her 2 days later, "How does Saturday evening sound? For our low-key dinner?" Anita had stared at her phone for 5 minutes before responding, "Saturday works." "Where? Do you like Korean food?" "Love it." "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. She'd spent Saturday afternoon second-guessing everything. Was this actually a date? Or just a thank-you dinner between two people who'd met in weird circumstances? Why was she nervous? She'd been on dates since Devon. Several dates. This shouldn't feel different. Except it did. Min-jun had arrived at exactly 7 p.m., looking unfairly handsome in dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that probably cost more than her couch. He'd also brought flowers, a beautiful arrangement of white peonies. "You remembered where I live from one car ride?" Anita had asked, accepting the flowers. "I have an excellent memory. You look beautiful." She'd chosen a burgundy wrap dress that hugged her curves, paired with heeled boots and simple gold jewelry. She'd felt beautiful putting it on. Hearing him say it out loud had made her feel incandescent. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. How's the head?" "Completely healed, according to my doctor. Though I'm under strict instructions not to overexert myself." "Does dinner count as overexertion?" "Only if it goes very, very well." The flirtation had been unexpected and thrilling. He'd taken her to a small restaurant in Koreatown, tucked between a karaoke bar and a cosmetics shop. From the outside, it looked unassuming. Inside, it was cozy and warm, with exactly 8 tables and the most amazing smells. The owner, a tiny woman in her 70s, had rushed over the moment they'd entered, greeting Min-jun with obvious affection and a rapid stream of Korean that made him smile sheepishly. "This is low-key." Anita had teased once they were seated. "For me, yes. Mrs. Choi is like family. She wouldn't let me bring someone here unless I wanted them to feel special. So I'm special." "Very much so." The food had been incredible, banchan that kept appearing, steaming bowls of gamjatang, perfectly grilled galbi, kimchi that had the exact right amount of spice. "This is amazing," Anita had said around a mouthful of rice. "Like, I've had Korean food before, but this is different. Mrs. Choi has been cooking the same recipes for 50 years. She refuses to modernize or franchise. Says food should be made with heart, not efficiency. Smart woman." They'd talked for hours. Anita had learned that Min-jun had moved to New York 5 years ago to expand his family's business interests from Seoul to the United States. That he had an older sister who ran the Korean operations. That he missed home sometimes but loved the energy of New York. "What about you?" he'd asked. "Tell me about Anita." She'd given him the basics, grew up in Newark, Nigerian immigrant parents who'd worked 3 jobs between them to send her and Zola to college, career in insurance, close relationship with her sister. She'd left out Devon. "Not ready to go there yet." "And do you like it?" "Risk analysis." "I love it, actually. I like solving puzzles. I like seeing patterns. I like protecting people from worst-case scenarios. Like you did with me. That was just basic human decency." Which is rarer than you'd think. As dinner had wound down and Mrs. Choi had fussed over sending them home with extra food, Min Jun had driven her home himself, a sleek Audi that had somehow escaped the accident unscathed. "I had a wonderful time," Anita had said as they'd pulled up outside her building. "So did I." He'd turned to face her, one hand on the steering wheel, the other gesturing as he spoke. "I would like to see you again, Anita. Not as a thank you. As, me wanting to spend time with you." Her heart had done that fluttering thing again. "I'd like that too. Even though you barely know me. I know enough. You're kind to little old ladies. You don't drink with a concussion. You think food should be made with heart." She'd smiled. "That's a pretty good start." He'd walked her to her door, the perfect gentleman. As she'd unlocked it, he'd caught her hand. "Thank you. For giving me a chance." She'd kissed his cheek, impulsive and brave. "Thank you for asking." She'd floated into her apartment, dumped the leftover food in the fridge, and immediately called Zola. "I just went on the best date of my life." "With who?" "Remember that car accident I texted you about?" "Girl, you're dating the car accident man?" "The CEO?" "Apparently." Zola had hooped loud enough to wake her roommates. "Yes. This is it. This is your romance novel moment. Zoe, it's one date. One incredible date. Don't downplay it. How do you feel?" Anita had thought about it. "Hopeful." "Is that stupid?" "That's perfect." Over the next 2 months, Anita and Min Jun had fallen into a rhythm that felt both thrilling and easy. He'd been refreshingly direct about his interest, no games, no ambiguity. He'd texted consistently but not obsessively. He'd planned thoughtful dates, a gallery opening in Chelsea featuring Korean contemporary artists, a jazz night at a club in the village, a cooking class where they'd made dumplings and laughed at their misshapen attempts. He'd also been honest about his life in ways that should have sent her running. It had been their 5th date, a quiet evening at his penthouse apartment in Midtown, all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist elegance, when he'd brought it up. "There are things about my life you should know," Min Jun had said over wine and takeout Thai food. "Before this goes further." "This?" She'd felt bold enough to tease. "What is this exactly?" "Me falling for you. Wanting you in my life in a real way. Which means you deserve the truth." That had sobered her. "Okay. I'm listening." He'd set down his wine glass with careful precision. "My family's business, Kong International, operates in gray areas. We do legitimate import-export, yes. Commercial real estate, yes. But we also do things that aren't entirely legal. Like protection services for Korean businesses that the police can't or won't help. Debt collection through aggressive negotiation. Real estate acquisition that sometimes involves intimidation. Import of goods that don't always go through proper customs channels." Anita had processed this. "You're Korean Mafia. The term we use is jopuk, but essentially, yes." She'd expected to feel scared. Instead, she'd felt oddly calm. "Are you personally violent?" "I have been. When necessary. But I try to lead with strategy rather than force." "Do you hurt innocent people?" "Never intentionally. I have lines I don't cross, I don't traffic people, I don't deal drugs, I don't prey on the vulnerable. I protect my community. I solve problems that exist in the shadows. A vigilante CEO mob boss." She'd taken a sip of wine. "That's definitely not on my dating bingo card. I understand if this is too much. If you want to walk away." "Do you want me to walk away?" "God, no." The intensity in his voice had startled them both. "I want you to stay. I want to take you to dinner and learn everything about you. I want to introduce you to my sister when she visits next month. I want to wake up and text you good morning and know you're thinking of me too." Min-jun. But I won't lie to you. I won't pretend to be someone I'm not. If you choose this, choose me, you need to know who you're choosing. Anita had looked at him, really looked. At this complicated, honest, dangerous man who'd been nothing but respectful and kind to her. Who'd made her laugh, who'd listened to her talk about work stress, who'd remembered she didn't like too much spice and always ordered accordingly. Can I ask you something? Anything. That first night, in the hospital, you said you had bad memories. What happened? Min-jun had been quiet for a long moment. My mother died in a hospital when I was 16. Cancer. I held her hand and watched her disappear piece by piece until there was nothing left. His voice had been soft, devastated even years later. I hate hospitals because they remind me of being helpless. Of not being able to protect someone I loved. Anita's heart had cracked for him. I'm so sorry. It made me who I am. Someone who never wants to feel powerless again. Someone who protects his people, even if the methods aren't always clean. He'd looked at her. Does that make me a bad person? I think it makes you a person who's been hurt and found a way to survive. I don't agree with everything you do, but I understand why you do it. So you're staying? She'd stood, crossed to where he sat, and kissed him, soft at first, then deeper when he'd pulled her into his lap with a desperate sound. I'm staying, she'd whispered against his lips. But if you ever lie to me, we're done. Truth, always. Even when it's hard. Truth always, he'd agreed, and kissed her until the food went cold. Their relationship had deepened quickly after that night. Min-jun had introduced her to his inner circle, Taeyang, his head of security who'd warmed to Anita after seeing her hold her own in a debate about risk assessment, Seo-jun, his business strategist who'd been impressed by her financial acumen, even Mrs. Choi, who'd declared Anita good for that boy, and started feeding her like a beloved granddaughter. Anita had introduced him to Zola, who'd sized him up over brunch and declared, "You hurt my sister, and I know people who can make you disappear." Min-jun had smiled pleasantly. So do I. Fortunately, I have no intention of hurting her. Good. Then we'll get along great. Pass the plantains. He'd met her parents too, a slightly terrifying experience involving her mother's interrogation about his intentions and her father's quiet assessment. But Min-jun had been respectful and charming, complimenting her mother's cooking and discussing economic policy with her father, and by the end of the evening, both parents had given grudging approval. He's very polished, her mother had said later. He's rich, Mom. You can say it. I was going to say he looks at you like you hung the moon. That's more important than money. What Anita loved most was how Min-jun saw her, really saw her. He'd never once made her feel like she was too much or not enough. He'd admired her intelligence, sought her opinion on business decisions, celebrated her work victories like they were his own. And physically, he'd worshipped her. Your art, he'd murmured one night, hands tracing her curves in the low light of his bedroom. Every part of you is perfect. I'm not. You are. To me, you are absolute perfection. She'd let herself believe him. 8 months into their relationship. Anita had been in Min-jun's penthouse office, reading reports on her tablet while he finished a conference call, when he'd ended the call and turned to her with an expression she couldn't quite read. I need you to come to an event with me. What kind of event? The annual automotive industry gala. It's next month at the Plaza Hotel. Anita's blood had gone cold. The automotive gala. Yes. Several of my business associates have investments in luxury automotive. I typically attend for networking. He'd paused, watching her carefully. Why do you look like I just asked you to walk into traffic? She'd set down her tablet. Devon will probably be there. Devon. Your ex-boyfriend. She'd told Min-jun about Devon a few months into their relationship, the whole story, including the humiliating end. He'd listened with an intensity that had made her feel truly heard, and then he'd said, very quietly, I would like his address so I can have a conversation with him about respect. She'd laughed despite herself. No vigilante justice on my behalf. Not even a little. Not even a little. Now, Min-jun had crossed to where she sat, crouching so they were eye level. Devon Customs has been making waves in the luxury market. It's possible he'll be represented. Does that make you uncomfortable? I don't know. Maybe. It's been 10 months. I'm over him. I'm happy with you, so happy. But the idea of seeing him makes you anxious. Yeah. Min-jun had taken her hands. Here's what I think. I think you've spent 10 months becoming the most magnificent version of yourself. You've thrived in your career, you've built a life you love, you've chosen yourself every single day. And I think he should see that. That feels vindictive. Perhaps. But I want him to see you happy, successful, and with someone who knows your worth. I want him to spend the rest of his mediocre life regretting that he was too much of a fool to appreciate what he had. His smile had been sharp. Is that vindictive of me? Extremely. Will you come anyway? Anita had thought about it. The old her would have said no, would have hidden, would have avoided the confrontation. But she wasn't that person anymore. Yes. I'll come. Min-jun had kissed her then, thorough and possessive. That's my girl. The next 3 weeks had been a whirlwind of preparation. Min-jun had insisted on taking her shopping. Let me do this. Please. I want to spoil you, and they'd spent an afternoon at high-end boutiques in Soho. Anita had felt self-conscious at first, aware of the salespeople's assessing looks, the whispers about whether they had her size. But Min-jun had been imperious and demanding, insisting on attentive service and perfect fits. She tried on a dozen dresses before finding the one. Midnight blue silk that hugged every curve, with a subtle train and a neckline that was elegant without being revealing. When she'd stepped out of the dressing room, Min-jun's expression had stolen her breath. That's the one, he'd said, voice rough. You don't think it's too much? I think you could wear a potato sack and still be the most beautiful woman in any room. But in that dress? He'd crossed to her, pressed a kiss to her temple. You're going to stop traffic. She'd gotten her hair done too, sleek and elegant, pulled into a sophisticated updo that showcased her neck and shoulders. Professional makeup that enhanced without masking. She'd felt like a different person. No. She'd felt like the most authentic version of herself she'd ever been. The Plaza Hotel had been transformed into an elegant showcase of automotive excellence. Classic cars on display, champagne flowing, New York's wealthy and influential mingling under crystal chandeliers. Anita and Min-jun had arrived fashionably late, his style. His Audi had pulled up to the red carpet, yes, there was a red carpet, and when he'd come around to open her door, offering his hand, she'd felt like a movie star. The cameras had flashed, mostly for Min-jun, who was apparently notable in both legitimate business and the Korean community, but some for her too. Who are you wearing? Someone had called. Happiness, Anita had called back, and Min-jun had laughed, delighted. Inside, the ballroom had been breathtaking. Hundreds of people in evening wear, the cream of New York's automotive industry and the investors who funded them. Anita had scanned the room casually as they'd walked in, Min-jun's hand warm on the small of her back. And then she'd seen him. Devon. He'd been standing near a custom Porsche display, midnight black with gold accents, admittedly gorgeous, laughing with a group of men in expensive suits. He'd looked successful, Tom Ford tuxedo, expensive watch, the easy confidence of someone whose dreams had come true. Sienna had been at his side, delicate hand on his arm, wearing white, of course, and looking every bit the polished accessory he'd apparently wanted. Anita had felt nothing. No heartbreak, no longing, no wish that things had turned out differently. Just a distant sort of pity and gratitude that she'd dodged that bullet. That him? Min-jun had murmured, following her gaze. Yeah. Do you want to leave? No. I want champagne and to look at overpriced cars with my devastatingly handsome boyfriend. His smile had been radiant. As you wish. They'd made their way through the room, Min-jun introducing her to various business associates, some of whom were clearly legitimate businessmen, others who had that same dangerous elegance Min-jun possessed. Everyone had been respectful, interested, welcoming. You didn't tell me your girlfriend was brilliant, one man, a luxury car dealership owner, had said after Anita had offered insights on risk management for high-value inventory. I tell everyone, Min-jun had replied smoothly. But most people are too foolish to listen. It had been 30 minutes before Devon had noticed her. She'd been laughing at something Taeyong had said, champagne in hand, feeling light and happy and utterly herself, when she'd felt eyes on her. She'd looked up. Devon had been staring at her from across the room, his champagne glass frozen halfway to his mouth, his expression cycling through confusion, recognition, and shock. She'd watched realization dawn, that the beautiful woman in the midnight blue dress, the one laughing with the Korean CEO everyone was trying to network with, was his ex-girlfriend. The one he'd discarded because she didn't fit the aesthetic. Their eyes had met across the room. Anita had smiled, polite, distant, and turned back to her conversation. She'd felt Min-jun's hand tighten on her waist, possessive and proud. He sees you, he'd murmured. I know. How do you feel? She'd expected this moment to hurt. Expected old wounds to tear open, expected to feel small again. Instead, she'd felt powerful. I feel free, she'd said, and meant it. Devon had approached during a lull in the evening, when Min-jun had stepped away to take a business call. Anita had been studying the Porsche, admittedly beautiful work, when she'd heard his voice. Anita. She'd turned slowly, taking in the man who'd broken her heart. He'd looked older somehow. Tired beneath the polish. Devon. You look. Jesus, you look incredible. Thank you. She'd taken a sip of champagne, waiting. Awkward silence had stretched between them. She'd refused to make this easy. I didn't know you'd be here, he'd finally said. Why would you? We haven't spoken in 10 months. I didn't know you were into the automotive scene. I'm not. I'm here with my boyfriend. She'd let the word land deliberately, watched him flinch. Kang Min-jun. It hadn't been a question. Do you know who that is? What his family does? I know exactly who he is and what his family does. And I've never felt safer or more cherished in my life. Devon had run a hand over his face, and she'd noticed his watch, expensive, but not as expensive as Min-jun's. His suit, well-tailored, but not as perfectly cut. Everything about him had seemed diminished somehow. Mara, I've been meaning to reach out. The way things ended between us, it wasn't right. No, it wasn't. I fucked up. I know I did. I was shallow and stupid and I let go of the best thing in my life because I was too insecure to see what was right in front of me. Okay. He'd blinked, seemingly thrown by her calm. Okay. Okay, you fucked up. Okay, you were shallow. Okay, you recognize that now. What do you want me to do with that information, Devon? I'm asking for another chance. Anita had actually laughed, not cruelly, but with genuine surprise. You're joking. I'm not. Sienna and I aren't together anymore. It fell apart months ago, she was just using me for Instagram content and connections. Everything I thought I wanted turned out to be empty. He'd stepped closer. But what we had was real. I miss you, Mara. I miss your laugh, your cooking, the way you believed in me. I miss us. There is no us. There could be. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway. Please. Give me another chance to do this right. She'd looked at him, really looked, and seen the regret clearly written on his face. It was real. He meant it. And she'd felt absolutely nothing. No, Devon. Why? Because of him. Because of Kong. Because of me. She'd set down her champagne glass. You had me when I was willing to give you everything. My time, my money, my faith, my love, all of it, freely given. And you threw it away because I didn't fit your aesthetic. Because I was inconvenient to your brand. I was wrong. You were. But that's not why I won't take you back. She'd stepped closer, holding his gaze. I won't take you back because I finally learned what I should have known all along. I deserve better. I deserve someone who sees my value inherently, not because someone else recognized it first. I deserve someone who's proud to stand beside me exactly as I am. I deserve someone who makes me feel powerful, not small. I could be that person now. Maybe you could. But I don't care. I don't want you, Devon. Not anymore. Not even a little bit. The words had landed like physical blows. She'd watched him absorb them, watched his face cycle through denial, hurt, and finally resignation. You really love him. I really do. Does he know how lucky he is? Yes. He tells me every day. Devon had nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. And I really am happy you found someone who treats you the way you deserve. Thank you. You were always beautiful. I was just too blind to see it. She'd softened slightly. I hope you find what you're looking for, Devon. I hope you build an empire. I hope you learn to value substance over surface. But mostly, I hope you learn to be alone without being lonely. Because that's where real growth happens. He'd looked like he wanted to say more, but Min Jun had appeared at Anita's side, perfectly timed. Everything all right? His tone had been pleasant, but there'd been steel underneath. His hand had slipped around her waist with easy possessiveness. Everything's perfect, Anita had said. Devon was just leaving. Min Jun had extended his hand to Devon, a power move, forcing him to shake or be rude. Your work is impressive. The Porsche is beautiful. Devon had shaken, clearly uncomfortable. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks. He'd looked at Anita one last time. Take care of yourself, Mara. I always do. They'd watched him walk away, back to Sienna who'd been watching from across the room with narrowed eyes. How do you feel? Min Jun had asked quietly, turning Anita to face him. Like I just closed a chapter that should have ended a long time ago. Good. He'd tilted her chin up, his dark eyes intense. Because I plan to fill all your future chapters, if you'll let me. Her heart had stuttered. Min Jun. I love you, Anita Okafor. He'd said it clearly, certainly, like it was the most obvious truth in the world. I've loved you since you ordered me to stop talking while you saved my life. I love your strength, your kindness, your brilliant mind. I love the way you take up space in the world without apology. I love every curve, every laugh, every fierce, magnificent part of you. She'd felt tears prick her eyes, happy tears. I love you too. So much. Good. He'd kissed her then, in the middle of the Plaza ballroom, with all of New York's elite watching. Then let's get out of here. I have plans for you. Oh. What kind of plans? The kind where I take you home and spend several hours reminding you exactly how extraordinary you are. She'd laughed, feeling light and cherished and utterly complete. Lead the way. As they'd left the gala, Min Jun's hand in hers, her head high, her heart full, Anita had caught Devon's eyes one last time. He'd been watching her leave with an expression of profound regret. She'd felt a moment of pity for him. And then she'd walked out into her future and hadn't looked back. 6 months later. If someone had told Anita a year ago that her life would look like this, she'd never have believed them. She'd been promoted to Director of Risk Management at Titanium Risk Group, the youngest person to hold the position, overseeing a team of 15 analysts and handling the firm's most complex accounts. She'd moved into Min Jun's penthouse, not because she'd needed to, but because waking up next to him every morning felt like coming home. She'd learned to navigate the complexities of loving a man whose business operated in shadows. Min Jun had been completely transparent, introducing her to the key players in his organization, explaining the structures and hierarchies, trusting her with secrets that could destroy him if they fell into the wrong hands. "You're good for him," Park Jae-sung, Min Jun's second-in-command, had told her once. The stern, scary man had actually smiled at her. "You make him more human. More balanced. He was plenty human before me." "Yes, but you make him want to be better. That's rare." She'd also started a side consulting business, helping small businesses, particularly those in immigrant communities, navigate risk management and insurance optimization. Min Jun had introduced her to several Korean business owners who'd needed her expertise, and word had spread. Her client list had grown quickly. "You're changing lives," Min Jun had said one evening, reading through her testimonials. "I'm just helping people protect what they've built." Exactly. You're changing lives. She'd also started a blog about body positivity and self-worth, Worthy As Is, sharing her journey from heartbreak to healing. The response had been overwhelming. Women from all over had reached out, sharing their own stories, finding strength in her vulnerability. Her relationship with Min Jun had deepened into something that felt unshakable. They'd had their challenges, his late-night, business emergencies, that he couldn't discuss, her worries about the danger his lifestyle posed, cultural differences that sometimes caused misunderstandings. But they'd worked through everything with honest communication and mutual respect. He'd never once made her feel like anything other than a priority. When she'd expressed concern about being targeted by his enemies, he'd tightened security, created contingency plans, and been completely transparent about potential risks. "I would never forgive myself if you were hurt because of me," he'd said seriously. "If you ever want to walk away from this life, I'll understand. I'll hate it, but I'll understand." "I'm not going anywhere," she'd assured him. "We're partners. In everything." And they were. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday evening in March, just after spring had started to hint at its arrival. They'd been cooking dinner together in the penthouse kitchen, their favorite routine. Min Jun had been teaching her to make kimchi jjigae, patient with her questions and laughing when she'd accidentally added too much gochugaru. "We can save it," he'd assured her, adding more broth. "See? Everything can be adjusted. Fixed. Made better. You're very philosophical about soup." "I'm philosophical about everything. It's part of my charm. Your humility is also very charming." "I know. I'm humble about how charming my humility is." She'd been laughing, tasting the adjusted broth, perfect now, when he'd suddenly gone quiet. She'd turned to find him holding a small black box. Her heart had stopped. "Min Jun. I had a speech planned," he'd said, his accent thicker than usual, a tell that he was nervous. "Something eloquent about how you changed my life. How you walked into the worst moment of my day and became the best part of my life. How you make me believe in goodness and honor and all the things my world usually doesn't have room for. You don't need a speech. But standing here with you, in our kitchen, with our dinner on the stove, I realize the truth is much simpler." He'd opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by diamonds. "I want this. Every day. For the rest of my life. The cooking and the laughing and the debates and the quiet mornings and the chaotic evenings and all of it. I want to build a life with you, Anita. A family. A future." She'd started crying before he'd even asked. "Marry me. Be my wife, my partner, my home." "Yes." The word had burst out of her, joyful and certain. "Yes, absolutely yes." He'd slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, this powerful, dangerous man reduced to nerves by loving her, and then pulled her into a kiss that tasted like forever. They'd forgotten about dinner entirely. Later, much later, as they'd lain tangled together in the darkness, she traced the lines of his face. "I never thought I'd be here," she'd whispered. "Never thought I'd be this happy. You deserve every bit of this happiness and more." "I know," she'd said, and meant it. "I finally know." They'd married 4 months later in a ceremony that blended Korean and Nigerian traditions, a beautiful, intentional merging of their worlds. The venue had been a boutique hotel in upstate New York, all rustic elegance and natural beauty. 50 guests, their closest friends and family, had witnessed them exchange vows in both English and Korean. Anita had worn 2 dresses, a traditional Nigerian iro and buba for the first part of the ceremony, then changed into a stunning white gown with blue accents for the reception. Min Jun had worn a traditional hanbok, then changed to a sharp black tuxedo. Zola had cried through the entire ceremony. "I'm just so happy you found your person," she'd sobbed during her maid of honor speech. "After everything, all the heartbreak and healing, you found someone who sees all of you and loves all of you. That's magic." "That's Min Jun," Anita had corrected, smiling at her husband. Min Jun's sister, Kang Ji-woo, had flown in from Seoul and immediately bonded with Anita. "My brother has excellent taste," she declared. "Welcome to the family. You're going to keep him humble." "That's the plan." The celebration had been perfect, food from both cultures, music that ranged from Afrobeats to K-pop, dancing until the early hours of the morning. Min Jun had surprised her with a first dance to a song he'd had specially written, with lyrics in Igbo, English, and Korean. "When did you do this?" she'd asked, tears streaming down her face. "I've been planning it since the day you said yes." Her parents had given their blessing with tears and joy. Her father had pulled Min Jun aside for a conversation that had lasted 20 minutes and left Min Jun looking properly serious. "What did he say?" Anita had asked later. "That you're his treasure. That I'm lucky he's trusting me with you. That if I ever make you cry, he knows people." "He doesn't know people. He's an accountant." He said that very convincingly for an accountant. 1 year later. Married life had been everything Anita had never known she wanted. She and Min Jun had bought a brownstone in Brooklyn, something with space and character and room to grow. They'd talked about children, about building a life that honored both their cultures, about creating something neither of their families had had, true partnership. Her consulting business had grown beyond her wildest expectations. She'd hired 2 assistants, was considering opening an actual office. She'd been invited to speak at conferences about risk management and inclusive business practices. Her blog had turned into a podcast, Worthy as Is, Conversations About Value, where she interviewed women about their journeys to self-acceptance. It had a dedicated following and had led to opportunities she'd never imagined. Min Jun had been transitioning some of his business operations toward more legitimate endeavors, still protection services and real estate, but with less of the shadowy elements. "You make me want to build something our children can be proud of," he'd told her. She'd heard through mutual acquaintances that Devon Customs had struggled after losing a major investor. He'd had to downsize, move to a smaller space, was trying to rebuild. Sienna had long since moved on to the next opportunity. Anita had felt a twinge of sympathy but mostly just gratitude that her life had taken a different path. One Saturday afternoon, she'd been in their home office working on podcast notes when Min Jun had appeared with tea and homemade cookies from Mrs. Choi. "You're too good to me," she'd said, accepting the tea. "Impossible. There's no such thing as too good for you." He'd kissed the top of her head. "How's the podcast going?" "Really well. Next week's guest is amazing. She started a non-profit for body-positive fitness. I love watching you build this. Watching you change the world one conversation at a time. I'm not changing the world. You changed mine." He'd turned her chair so she faced him. "Everything good in my life now traces back to you. The business improvements, the relationship with my sister, the peace I feel, all of it started with you. We changed each other. Yes. But you changed me first. You saw something worth loving when I was at my worst, bleeding in a car accident, vulnerable, human. You didn't see the CEO or the reputation or the danger. You just saw someone who needed help and you helped. Basic human decency is rarer than you think. He'd pulled her up, wrapped his arms around her waist. Thank you. For seeing me. For choosing me. For building this life with me. She'd kissed him, soft and slow and full of love. Best decision I ever made. That evening, they'd walked through Prospect Park hand in hand, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Do you ever think about him? Min Jun had asked. Devon. Sometimes. Not often. And never with regret. Good. Do you know what I think about instead? Tell me. I think about the woman I was 2 years ago. Heartbroken, lost, convinced she wasn't enough. And I think about who I am now, loved, successful, whole. And I realize the transformation wasn't about him or you or anyone else. It was about me finally seeing what was always there. Which was that I was always enough. I was always worthy. I was always deserving of love and respect and everything good. I just had to believe it myself before anyone else could. Min Jun had stopped walking, turned to face her in the fading light. You're extraordinary. You know that, right? I'm learning. Learn faster. I want you to see yourself the way I see you, brilliant, powerful, unstoppable. I'm working on it. Good. He'd kissed her forehead. I'll remind you every day until you believe it completely. As they'd walked home through the Brooklyn streets, past brownstones with lights glowing warmly in windows, past families and couples and people living their own complicated, beautiful lives, Anita had thought about the journey that had brought her here. The heartbreak that had felt like an ending but had actually been a beginning. The healing that had been messy and non-linear but ultimately transformative. The moment she'd run toward a car accident instead of away, and met the man who would become her partner in everything. Devon's regret didn't matter, had never really mattered. What mattered was that she'd found herself. And then, when she was whole and complete on her own, she'd found a partner who celebrated that wholeness instead of trying to diminish it. That was the real victory. Not revenge. Not vindication. Not watching someone realize what they'd lost. But becoming someone who knew, deeply, certainly, unshakably, that she was worthy exactly as she was. That was power. That was freedom. That was love. And that's Anita's story, fam. From heartbreak to healing to finding a love that celebrates all of her, every curve, every strength, every magnificent part. This is the energy we need to carry forward. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets me keep bringing you these stories. Subscribe if you haven't already because I post dramatic romance stories like this every single week, and you don't want to miss them. Now I want to hear from you. What's the most important lesson you took from Anita's journey? Was it about self-worth? About healing? About finding the right person? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and I love seeing your perspectives. And here's my final thought for you: you don't need someone else to validate your worth. You're already enough, exactly as you are. The right person won't make you feel worthy, they'll simply recognize what was always there. Remember, the best revenge isn't making someone regret losing you. It's becoming so completely, authentically yourself that you forget to care whether they regret it or not. Choose yourself first. Always. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay worthy, stay powerful, stay you. Peace.